Well, shall we get started? All right. Welcome everyone to the DHAsia webinar. This is a series designed for DH researchers in Asia, DH scholars of Asia, and those who are keen on all things DHAsia. My name is Setsuko Yokoyama, Assistant Professor of Digital Humanities at Singapore University of Technology and Design. I am today's host, but this webinar is organized by a group of DH scholars across the region. So let me copy paste the DHAsia webinar planning team's name in the chat. If you are keen on joining the organizing team, please reach out to any one of us. Without further ado, let me introduce today's moderator, Dr. Tomoji Tabata, professor at Osaka University's Graduate School of Humanities, Divisions of Language and Culture. He is an expert in corpus-driven research on the English language, known for his works on authorship attribution, as well as corpus linguistics and stylistics. He's one of the early adopters of DH in Japan and is a sitting president of the Japanese Association for Digital Humanities. In recent years, he had designed a graduate DH program at Osaka University, which situates DH as a methodology commons for graduate students across the disciplines in the humanities, which I'm a huge fan of. I trust many of his students are also in the audience today, so welcome. Today, he has kindly agreed to moderate our conversations. Now, Tabata Sensei, could you introduce today's speaker for us?
Okay, thank you very much, Yokoyama Setsuko Sensei, for the kind introduction. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Tomoji Tabata. Well, it is my great pleasure to introduce to you today's speaker, Dr. Ayano Takeuchi, or Takeuchi Ayano Sensei, following the Japanese name order. I have known Takeuchi Ayano Sensei for years through our participation in the Poetics and Linguistics Association's international conferences, as well as digital humanities conferences. I am fascinated by her insightful research on the style and language of the tale of Genji every time I have a chance to listen to her presentation. And Takeuchi Sensei is always the source of inspiration to me, enchanting everyone interested in how language is creatively used in great literary works. Takeuchi Sensei received a PhD for her dissertation on Murasaki Shikibu, or Lady Murasaki's historic masterpiece, The Tale of Genji. She is presently a specially appointed assistant professor at the National Institute of Japanese Literature. And Takeuchi Sensei focused her research on the tale of Genji. In addition, she also shows her expertise in applying literary and linguistic annotation to historical Japanese texts in an effort to make the historical corpus of Japanese language even more fine-grained linguistic resource. As many of you should know, the tale of Genji was authored in as early as 1008 and was published before 1021. It is arguably the earliest literary work by a female author. Earlier by well over 6 centuries than the British counterpart, Arthur Vane's Orunoko, or the Royal Slave, which was published in 1688. I find today's lecture is very timely, since we are witnessing a renewed interest in the tale of Genji in this part of the world, with a televised adaptation of the work being telecast every Sunday night. I guess some of the participants this afternoon are enjoying every episode of the program. I have been very much looking forward to listening to Takeuchi-sensei's lecture. I am sure she will take us through the fascinating world where the tale of Genji meets digital humanities and illuminates new possibilities of humanities research. And we are pleased to have her here today. Everyone, please join me in warmly welcoming our distinguished speaker, Dr. Takeuchi Ayano Sensei.
Wow, thank you so much. I'm so flattered, but at the same time, I'm very honored. Thank you so much, Tabata Sensei, for such a nice introduction. Can you see my slides right now? Is it okay? Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for attending today's talk. In today's talk, I'm going to be talking about basically 3 things. First, I'm going to be talking about why I started incorporating DH into my research, and then I'm going to be sharing some benefits and difficulties I found in my research, and lastly, I'll be talking about my current research. Okay, let's start it. So first, let's talk about why I started DH and what was the motivation behind it. So this story actually goes back to my pre-graduate school year and also my graduate school years. I was originally trained in English linguistics, and my main focus was to investigate and also compare English translations of the tale of Genji by applying linguistic theories and also methods. And while I was doing so, one day I just realized, well, those translators, they were all Japan specialists, or at least East Asia specialists, and they read the tale of Genji in classical Japanese. And also they made references to the classical text while they were translating the tale of Genji. And I'm here sitting and investigating their translations, but not really knowing or not really understanding the classical Japanese text. And I thought to myself, well, would it be okay for me to do so? And it didn't really sit well with me. So when I started my graduate school, I switched my career to Japanese linguistic / Japanese literature. And then I started exploring the textual analysis of the tale of Genji. And one of the main issues was, or still is, free indirect discourse rendered in the tale of Genji. So I started exploring and also looking into the previous analysis, previous research on free indirect discourse in the tale of Genji. And unfortunately, but please don't get me wrong, because I respect all the researchers and also all the previous work. But the previous research was not really convincing enough for me. And one of the main issues that I had was the tale of Genji is a long novel containing 54 chapters in total, but the previous research only investigated some portions of the text. And there was another pivotal moment in my graduate school when I started forming my dissertation committee and also writing my prospectus. On my dissertation committee, I had one literature professor who is a Genji specialist and 3 linguists. One of them is Germanic language specialist, and another is Chinese language specialist, and my advisor is a Japanese language specialist. So as you may guess, it was really challenging and also difficult for me to convince all of them at once. And also, unfortunately, again, the previous frameworks and also previous theories that had been applied to the previous work in the textual analysis of the tale of Genji were not really convincing enough for my committee members as well. So I struggled a lot actually, and I was having a hard time. And I was trying to find a new way to investigate the text and find a new way to analyze and trying to find new findings. And one day I actually had an aha moment. And I thought to myself, what if I start with the text or data, not a theory, and go from there? And that was actually a good thinking, because Bible 2010 actually states corpus linguistic research often yields unexpected linguistic patterns, which are even counter to a native speaker's intuition for language use, or discovers linguistic constructs unidentified by traditional linguistic theory. This was a good news because employing digital technology and digital data into research could actually lead me to not only a new way to investigate, analyze the Genji text, but also new findings. So since then, I started incorporating DH into my research. So what are some of the benefits and the difficulties that I found in my research? So let's talk about the positive side first. So incorporating digital technology and data into your research means you use the computer extensively. And that actually brings us a lot of benefits. So I'm not going to go over like the whole list of the benefits, but here are some of the benefits I found. And the first, it enables us to analyze large amount of data, which would otherwise be impossible. So, which is really, really good for your research. And two, this is somewhat actually is related to the first benefit. It enables us to process the data in a systematic way. So, which is really, really good and also really important for research, in my humble opinion. And three, it makes it easy to count, sort out, and format the data, which is really, really helpful, actually. And four, it enables us to perform a replication study, which is very important because it actually allows us to verify and validate our findings. And last but not least, it enables us to provide reliable generalizability and validity, which you can actually improve by replication studies. So all of these benefits actually would otherwise be unfeasible or impossible without the computer. And these benefits may not really new to you, but what I want to say here is these benefits not only apply to modern language analysis, but also to classical Japanese language analysis as well. And it seems like there are a lot of benefits, and it seems like just good things about DH and digital technology and data. However, we have to keep in mind there is always a downside to everything. So what are some difficulties and shortcomings I found in my research? First, I have to say this. It is very, very, very challenging to attain 100% accuracy in data construction. I'm saying this from my own experience because I have participated in several data construction projects. No matter how much we tried, it was just really challenging to attain 100% accuracy. And sometimes I actually get this question at conferences, whether my data is 100% accurate. And unfortunately, I have to say, I always answer this way. Unfortunately, my data is not 100% accurate, and which actually get a lot of people upset. But this is true. It's just challenging. And that actually leads to the next difficulty. I have to say this too. There is no definitive, absolute 100% agreement on word segmentation and or PRS classification. If you know Japanese, written Japanese language is not English, so it does not have any spaces between words, and this is an inherent character of the language, I think. But if you look at the sentences that's written in the Japanese written language, that's just like a strings of characters. But you have to divide or separate them into words in order to process the data. But like I said, word segmentation may vary depending on the researcher and a scholar. So that means that even if your data doesn't have any human errors or mistakes, it is still not 100% accurate to some scholars. So you have to keep this in mind as well. And number 3, this is more like because I deal with archaic language. Neither the original manuscript nor the copies of the manuscript written in the Heian period when the tale of Genji was written have actually survived. So which means that we don't know what the original text looked like. We never know. But we have the oldest extant manuscript copy that was written in the Kamakura period. But Kamakura period is right after the Heian period, so we still don't know what the original or those copies that's written in the Heian period looked like. That's really unfortunate. But we have to bear. And 4, and you may think, well, even though you say that we have the tale of Genji containing 54 chapters in total, that's like a complete version of the tale of Genji. Yes, we do. Just because the data and the text are composed based on multiple surviving manuscripts. That's why we have the complete version of the tale of Genji today. But they say there are actually approximately 150 surviving extant manuscripts of the tale of Genji. And among 150, there are 3 manuscripts that have been used as the base text to compose annotated editions of the tale of Genji. And we also have to keep this in mind. Each edition actually has been composed based on the editor's policy. So whatever the editor's policies are, they are not the same. That's why there are some differences between editions. And I'm not going into details, but actually there has been a huge discussion on these 3 main manuscripts of the tale of Genji now. So in the future, there might be a change to these main manuscripts. And last but not least, I have to say this too, available texts and records are always limited. Because A, it takes time and effort to digitize text, of course. And B, it's just probably because I deal with archaic language 1,000 years ago during the Heian period. Well, I mean, during this period, they say many literary works were created, and some have survived, but others are completely lost. So, for example, if you want to compare the tale of Genji to other literary works written in this period, available texts are always limited. And also, probably, most likely, there will be no addition. So those are some of the difficulties and shortcomings I found in my research. But like I said earlier, there are a lot of benefits by utilizing digital technology and digital data into research, but we always have to keep in mind there is a downside or difficulties, shortcomings as well. And we should perform our research really carefully. Otherwise, we'll get tripped up by our data or methods. So that was my lessons. So now we talked about what my motivation was and also shortcomings and the benefits. Let's talk about my current research. So currently, mainly I am interested in 3 things. First, free indirect discourse or speech rendered in the tale of Genji. And I also have been working on gender and language, how gender ideology and gender identities are embodied in the text. And also I am very curious about and also interested in character creation. So these are the main projects that I have right now. And in the future, I have actually several projects in mind. And first, I am hoping to incorporate geographic information system into the textual analysis of the tale of Genji, and hopefully I can go back to translation studies of the tale of Genji. So for today's talk, I will be talking about character creation. But before jumping into the character creation project, I would like to talk about my daughter. So my daughter is taken from the corpus of the historical Japanese, also known as the CHJ. I am not really sure if some of you have ever heard of this corpus before or ever used this corpus for your research. So what is the CHJ? So the CHJ is a diachronic corpus of the Japanese language, and it has been developed and published by the National Institute for Japanese Language and Linguistics, and this project is still ongoing. They have been expanding the data for the corpus. And currently, it contains 20 million words, including historical materials from the 8th century to the early 20th century. And the corpus of the historical Japanese actually provides a lot of information. Pronunciations, POS classification, morphological information for all texts. And the CHJ is available to everyone through the online search engine Chunagon. So if you are interested in the CHJ and want to know more about CHJ, you can scan the QR code up there. And I also want to show you what kind of genres or works are actually contained in the CHJ. So here you see the historical periods on the left side, and in the middle, you see the genres or works for each period. So like you see, there are different kinds of genres for each period. And for my analysis, I use the Kana literature data from the Heian period, which contains about 1 million words in total. So let's go back to character creation. So what is the character creation? What is the creation of characters? What do I mean by that? Well, in movies, like novels and manga, there are always, of course, characters. And characters are all different from each other in many ways, right? For example, visually, some characters are very tall, some characters are very short, maybe other characters always wear braids. But I believe they are not just characterized by their appearance, how they look. Their words also contribute to differentiating or making them unique. For example, in a movie or novel, there are always some characters who are distinctive in their speech by utilizing some words and expressions that are particular to them. So here I want to say is words produced by characters can actually tell us a lot more than we think they do. But how about the characters in the tale of Genji, which was written 1,000 years ago? They didn't have as much vocabulary as we do today, but do they do the same thing? So traditionally speaking, it was considered there were no distinctions even between genders. However, recent research actually found some distinctions and differences. And for example, Kondo 2005 found there are actually gender distinctions in the dictions of the short forms composed by the characters in the tale of Genji. And Sato 2006 found female characters in the tale of Genji tend not to use Chinese origin words, while male characters do. And Takeuchi and Ogiso 2024 found not only genders, but also social groups actually influence the linguistic choices to express emotions. So it looks like there are some differences and distinctions in the language use. But how these findings actually contribute to the creation of characters in the tale of Genji? So let me start with the findings in Takeuchi and Ogiso 2024. In this study, we performed correspondence analysis on highly occurring emotive adjectives in the characters' words in the tale of Genji. And here is the correspondence, the resulting plot. As you can see here, there are 4 pink circles and blue squares. And the pink circles represent character categories, and the blue squares represent the emotive adjectives. As you see here, on the left side to the origin, we have 2 character categories. The one is P, which represent priest or male characters in the priesthood, and the other character category is MLP, which represent male layperson character category. So that means that those emotive adjectives that are plotted on the left side to the origin are strongly associated with the male character categories. And on the right side to the origin, we have 2 character categories. One of them is N, which represent Nang or the female characters in the priesthood, and FLP that represent female layperson character category. So again, those emotive adjectives that are placed on the right side to the origin are more strongly associated with the female character categories. So according to this plot, it seems like there are some differences between genders and also social groups. But you may think, well, but those differences in the use of the emotive adjectives are male reflections of their situations in the tale of Genji. Because if you're in a sad situation, you probably use the word like sad. And if you're in a really happy situation, you probably use the word like happy. Of course, I would agree to some extent. However, for example, in some culture and in society, maybe men should not show emotions as much as women. And in such a culture or society, men probably do not use words like sad or happy. So what I want to say here is feeling some emotions is not the same as verbalizing the emotions. So why they do not really use some emotive adjectives or not really use the emotive adjectives? And does that actually happen in the Heian period? And going back to the previous study, on the 2005, she also examined the short poems contained in the Kokin Wakashu as well. And the Kokin Wakashu is the first imperial anthology compiled in the Heian period. And they say this imperial anthology actually represents gender ideology in this period. So, which means that by examining the diction of the poems in the Kokin Wakashu, we will actually know gender ideology in this period. So, which means like how men should be, how women should be, like what is appropriate, what is not really appropriate for men and women in the language use, of course. And she found some expressions are actually dominated by the male authors. And one of the expressions she found was those expressions containing the word koi, which means love. And actually, there is an emotive adjective here that actually contains the word koi, which is koishi. And this emotive adjective is plotted over here. As you can see, this emotive adjective koi is plotted on the left side to the origin. And considering its placement, this emotive adjective is more strongly associated with the male layperson character categories. So which means that this emotive adjective koishi is more likely to be used or produced by the male characters in the tale of Genji. So actually, this finding actually supports Kondo's finding. But for this presentation, I would like to focus on a pair of synonyms, which are tsurai and ui. So these emotive adjectives are considered to be synonyms. and then they are utilized to express bitterness, difficulty, and pain. But meaning-wise, they're a little bit different. The emotive adjective tsurai expresses dissatisfaction with others or their attitudes. So basically, by utilizing the emotive adjective, you blame others and also expressing your bitterness and difficulty and pain. But on the other hand, the emotive adjective ui expresses lament for one's fate, situation, and circumstances. So by utilizing the emotive adjective ui, you express bitterness, difficulty, and pain, but you don't really blame others. So that's the main difference between them. And where are they plotted on the plot? Here they are. As we can see, the emotive adjective ui is over here on the right side to the origin, and the emotive adjective tsurai is over here on the left side to the origin. So which means that considering its placement, the emotive adjective ui is more strongly associated with the female layperson character category, not with the noun character category. And tsurai is more strongly associated with the male layperson character category. So which means that again, in the characters words in the tale of Genji, ui is more likely to be produced by female layperson character, and also the emotive adjective tsurai is more likely to be produced by male layperson characters. And then, so now we know there are some distinctions and tendencies in the use of the emotive adjectives, but you may think, so how can this be actually useful for character creation that you're talking about? That's right. Okay, but I want to say here is, there are some distinctions and tendencies, but that doesn't mean the characters actually always follow the rules. So what happens when they actually don't follow the rules? And here we see the emotive adjective ui, which is more strongly associated with the female layperson character categories. But as you can see here, actually male characters also utilize this emotive adjective as well. But why do they use this emotive adjective that's more associated with the female characters? Do they want to sound feminine? So for what reason? So if you look at each instance, actually male characters use this emotive adjective to express their difficulty and pain. For example, when someone dear to their heart passes away, and then to express their grief over someone's death. So in such a case, they don't really blame others, but they want to show their grief. So that's why they use the emotive adjective ui instead of the emotive adjective tsurai. So how about the emotive adjective tsurai, which is over here? As you can see here, the emotive adjective tsurai is more strongly associated with the male layperson character category, as I said earlier. But as you can see here, female characters also utilize this emotive adjective. So why do they use this emotive adjective over the other one? That's more strongly associated with the female character categories. So what's the reason? What happens when they do this? So in order to find out, we need to look at each instance again. And here is the breakdown of the female characters who use this emotive adjective tsurai and frequencies. As you can see here, there aren't so many female characters who actually use this emotive adjective in their speech. And a lot of them actually only use one time, and 4 characters actually use twice, and 3 female characters use this emotive adjective 3 times. And Lady Rokujo uses this emotive adjective 5 times in her speech. What do you think? Well, some of you probably think, okay, 5 times, that's the highest frequency, but that's not a big number. Yeah, that's true. That's not hundreds. That's not 1,000. That's true. But considering this, this character in the tale of Genji, this is kind of interesting. So Lady Rokujo in the tale of Genji is depicted as one of the ideal women in the story. She is a daughter of the minister, and she is a consort of late crown prince, and she's also a mistress of young Genji. So basically, she is like flawless, impeccable, and perfect in the story. Why such an impeccable, perfect woman actually uses this emotive adjective that is strongly associated with the male character categories this much and is the highest frequency. I want to say something, but since we are not native speakers of classical Japanese language, we don't have a hunch. So meaning we cannot intuitively make a judge here. So what do? Let's analyze the data. And I'm still working on this part, so like this is like a beginning of my research. But I performed a correlation analysis on the emotive adjectives. And on the x-axis, we have the female characters as a whole. And the y-axis, we have the Lady Rokujo. And here, as we can see, this is the regression line, and which is uprising. So that means that the female character category, female characters as a whole, and Lady Rokujo have a correlation. And how strong? So that's the next question, right? And the correlation coefficient actually shows the how strong it is, and which is actually 0.4113. So which is actually high enough to say there is a correlation between them. And so which means that overall, in the use of the emotive adjectives, Lady Rokujo doesn't really stray away from the overall tendencies of the female character's use. However, interestingly enough, the emotive adjective tsurai is plotted over here, which is way far away from the regression line. So which means that she uses this emotive adjective way too much. So what does that mean? Is it usual, or is it okay for her to use this emotive adjective this much? Like way more than the overall tendency. Well, we can't really say yes or no. So I actually performed correlation analysis on two more female characters, which are Murasaki and Lady Fujitsubo. And both of these characters are depicted as ideal women in the tale of Genji, and Murasaki is a daughter of, how would you say it? Daughter of the crown prince, imperial prince, not crown prince, imperial prince. And she's also Genji's beloved wife. And Lady Fujitsubo is a daughter of the emperor, and also she is a consort of Emperor Keitsubo, who is Genji's father, and she becomes, later on in the tale, becomes an empress. So all in all, they are ideal women. So as we can see here, oops. So here is the regression line for Murasaki, and here is the regression line for Lady Fujitsubo. And then both of them are uprising, and the correlation coefficient for Murasaki is 0.4551, and for Lady Fujitsubo, 0.5102. So again, both of them have a correlation with the overall tendency, the female characters. So which means that, again, in the use of the emotive adjective, these characters don't really stray away from the overall tendency. But where is the emotive adjective tsurai? Here it is. For Murasaki, the emotive adjective tsurai is plotted on the x-axis, which means that she does not use this emotive adjective at all in her speech. 0. And Lady Fujitsubo, she does use this emotive adjective, but the placement actually shows that she doesn't really stray away from the overall tendency. So if we compare these two, and also Lady Rokujo, we can see Lady Rokujo's use of the emotive adjective tsurai is peculiar, probably not usual. So what actually happens when she uses this emotive adjective tsurai in her speech? What's going on with her? She does use this emotive adjective actually in 2 chapters in the tale of Genji. The first chapter she uses this emotive adjective is the chapter of Yugao, which is over here. And in this chapter, she appears as a wraith. In the next chapter, she uses this emotive adjective, tsurai, is over here, wakanage. In this chapter, she appears as an evil spirit. So in both cases, we could probably say Lady Rokujo is not in her normal state. She's probably out of her mind. And we could probably say the use of the emotive adjective tsurai actually shows it. But you have this question in your mind. But what if when she is in her normal state and then she wants to express her difficulty and pain? What kind of language does she use? What kind of word does she use? That actually happens in the chapter of Aoi that's over here. So in this chapter, she's a heart and she's really sad and she complains about her relationship with Genji. But she does not really use the word tsurai. Instead, she uses the emotive adjective ui. So again, the emotive adjective ui is more strongly associated with the female character category, especially female layperson character category. So that actually shows it too. So this is still an ongoing project. I'm still thinking about a lot of things. But this is just one case study of character creation and trying to kind of show how language is utilized to create characters in the tale of Genji. But I really hope I did show something interesting. And before ending this presentation, I would like to share my hopes. There are actually 2 that I want to show today. And the first hope is I truly hope digital humanities will be established, accepted, and welcomed in the textual analysis of classical Japanese literature. Not only the Genji, the tale of Genji, but the whole classical Japanese literature. Because when I started my own research, and even applying linguistic methods and theories to textual analysis of classical Japanese literature, that was not really welcomed, so let alone digital humanities. And the next hope is, this is more personal in a sense, but digital humanities method will hopefully help me and us understand and enjoy the tale of Genji just like the readers in the Heian period did. Because this is what I started my research and hoping. And unfortunately, we are not native speakers of this language, so I believe, or I think we don't have the sense as the readers in the past actually did. So, but I truly believe investigating the tale of Genji or the text itself will probably help us to understand better and enjoy more the tale itself. And here is the acknowledgement and references. Thank you very much.
Well, Takeuchi Sensei, thank you so much for the very, very engaging talk. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed your talk, and I was really fascinated by the way how female characters are told apart from male characters in the use of emotive adjectives in the tale Genji. Well, before going into questions, can I ask? Well, could I? Could I ask to share with the audience about the difficulty of reading classical Japanese texts. I mean, how incredibly difficult to read. I mean, for modern readers to read the Tale of Genji, it's just like modern English readers read Beowulf, things like that. You see, so could you share with the audience how difficult it is to read
How difficult.
Genji?
It's kind of
Genji.
it's kind of difficult to explain. But
Yes.
among the Japanese literary works that have survived to this day, they say the Tale of Genji is the most difficult to read in a lot of ways. For me, the most difficult thing that I have is not really grammar, like it's not really vocabulary. It's more like I cannot really sense the language itself. That's really frustrating to me. Yeah. So even though you understand what's going on in the text or the story, you don't have the same sense as you actually read in your mother tongue. So yeah, that's really difficult.
Exactly.
Of course, grammar
Yes.
and vocabularies are something that you have to learn, but you can learn them. But like the feelings or the sense, I don't really think we can actually learn. Yeah. But some people actually say they actually feel it, so maybe that's only for me. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Well, I have followed some authorship work on the Tale of Genji, and I have known that there are two, 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 two categories. I would say one is called Uji Jujo, and the other is Yonju Yonjo. And you mentioned the consistent difference between female characters and male characters in the use of emotive adjectives. And did you notice, or have you noticed the differences, or a difference between the two categories? I mean, Yonju Yonjo and Uji Jujo in the use of character creation or characterization.
Well, I haven't really looked into that much yet, but I feel like in Uji Jojo, like there are more characters who are lower in the status, social status. So like that actually kind of shows, that actually shows in the use of the emotive adjective as well. Because so Lady Okujo uses the emotive adjective tsurai the most, but the second character is what was her name? What was her name? Let me see. Yeah, Chujo no Kimi. So she is the mother of Ukihune. Ukihune is like a hero in Uji Jujo. And so her mother actually uses the emotive adjective 3 times. And whenever like she complains about, she uses this emotive adjective, she is complaining about her relationship with the imperial prince. She had this romantic relationship with the imperial prince, but once she gets pregnant, she gets dumped. And then later on in her life, and then she complains about it, and then she actually is using the word tsurai. But she's not really high in social status. So I'm not really sure if that's why she uses this emotive adjective a lot, or there are other reasons for her to use this emotive adjective a lot. Yeah, but so right now I have annotated some social differences to my daughter, but I haven't really annotated the social ranks yet, because it's really kind of hard, because in the past social ranks are very detailed, and also as the story goes on, characters actually climb up the social ranks. So I don't know how to deal with it yet. So I have to figure out. But once I figure out, I'm gonna add more information to my daughter and see like what kind of characteristics or what would you say? What's the word? What actually causes the differences in the use of the motive adjective, as well as probably other words as well.
I see. Could you show us the slide 21? I think
21.
yes, it's a table. It's a table called correspondence plot with 34 emotive adjectives.
Oh, is this the one? No.
I think no. It's a table of adjectives.
The table of the adjectives.
I think that was 21st slide. Slide. Yeah, that one. Yes.
Oh, that one. Okay.
Yeah.
Is this one?
Yeah, this one.
Okay,
Correct. Yeah, another thing that struck me was that male characters were more strongly associated with the adjective koishi, miss. So this leads me to wonder. I mean, were males allowed to express the feeling of longing for love more freely than females at that time? Am I correct?
I think so, because in Kondo 2005, yeah, she found a lot of expressions that contained the word koi, and then they were dominated by the male authors. And also I read somewhere, I can't really remember where it is, but I remember someone actually says in the paper, in the past, in the harem period, women should not start the relationship. It has to be the man always who starts the relationship, as well as end the relationship. There's no liberty for women to start the relationship. Yeah, probably that's why male characters use the word koishi or expressions containing love or koi, because they can freely express it and long for love, and they can start the relationship and end the relationship. Yeah, I think that's more like a cultural aspect involved.
I see.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I would like to invite questions from participants. Any questions? Well, you can ask questions in Japanese. 日本語で、質問していただいても結構です。Well, 雲島智恵さん、お願いします。
Thank you very much for your fascinating presentation, Takeuchi Sensei. I have one question. So you talked about your research on emotive adjectives, but I'm wondering whether you have thought about looking at verbs, because I'm not a classical Japanese expert, but I have the impression that Genji weeps a lot in the story. So I was probably some verbs could express the emotional status or state of some of the characters. So I was wondering whether it's just the adjectives, but other part of speech you want to look at. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the question. Well, I just started a character correction project right now, so I haven't really looked into other parts of the speech yet. Yeah, but probably later on, I'm going to be looking at some, what was it? Modal verbs and also verbs as well. But most likely, I feel like male characters like dominate a lot of words because they actually speak a lot more than female characters. Yeah, but probably modal verbs are probably interesting to look at, I guess, and also verbs. Yeah. Sorry, I don't have a concrete idea yet.
It's perfect. And I know that it's work in progress. It's difficult to from everything else.
Yeah,
Thank you
but thank
so
you.
much.
Yeah, but I will definitely.
Thank you. Any other questions?
There's one in the Q&A box.
Let me see.
Ask a question, please.
Should I read it out? The one from the Q&A box?
Oh, yes, please.
Okay,
Yes, please.
so this is Chak-Ming Liao. They ask, thanks for the presentation. I suppose there are different conjugations of these emotive adjectives. Some of them may be used as predicate. Some of them could be used as a modifier. Do you expect any patterns if they are analyzed separately?
Well, I haven't analyzed them separately, but in our data, you can actually do that. Let me show you how you can, what the data looks like actually. All the way. So my daughter looks something like this. Sorry, everything in Japanese here. But if you want to look at like what kind of, like if you want to analyze them separately, you can probably which one? Oh, you can actually look at this. Oh, there's no pointer. Okay. Oh, sorry, my pointer is not really working. Oh, so yeah, in the middle, like you see ki, if you can read Japanese, like that's how the word actually is written in the text, in the data. So if you're gonna see like what kind of conjugations are actually utilized in the text, you can actually sort out the data and calculate by this key. But for this analysis that I showed today, I use Goiso for calculation and sorting out. But for my pointer, why it's not? Oh no! What? Sorry. Sorry. Oh, what's going on here? Oh, yes. Yeah, I use Goiso for analysis. And then that includes all the different conjugations. So like I calculated, analyzed like all of them at once. Yeah, but I'm not really sure if conjugation actually matters here, but that's kind of interesting to see. So yeah, I will do it. Thank you.
Thank you. I was asking that because sometimes you use an adjective to describe your own emotion. Sometimes you're describing someone else. So I guess if you separate the two, you may see some patterns. I don't know. I have no idea. I cannot read classical Japanese, but that's what came to my mind.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, all the possibilities
So,
matter, I guess.
excuse me, I want to build on his question, please. So, so when I teach oral, like classical oral literature, we know that sometimes the storytellers memorize this long sentence with the same adjective and the same verb, so that every time they have a new audience, they can easily say the story, you know, and the new audience can catch up on what happened before and so on. But so sometimes these adjectives are added because that's the way they did it, with no extra psychoanalysis implied. But another thing I want to say, that if you use Click, which is an application that has a lot of Victorian literature as well, it's got this, you know, concordance where you can look at words and what appears before them, what appears after them. But most importantly, and this is adding to my colleague who just asked the question, is when you analyze a character, you look at different things. You look at what the character says, how he or she is being described, or how the narrator, the storyteller, sometimes the storyteller is tricky, you know? So we have to be careful. Is the storyteller, narrator telling the story? Is telling the truthful story, or is he being sarcastic? So when we analyze what a character is speaking, we say these are like quoted passages, right? But when we analyze what somebody else is saying about them, then that's a whole new table, I think, that you need. And then when we look at the narrator and we're trying to see what are the motives behind that story, like the narrators of Conrad, you know, were very tricky. You have to be careful. So did you take that into consideration, the complexity of not just looking at adjectives before a name or before a verb or before a character, but also looking at the context and who is saying what and why?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, yeah, we have to be really careful. Yeah, I agree. And speaking of the narrator, that's a whole another field in of the Genji, and I have been working on it too. Yeah, it's really hard. No, I don't want to start this conversation, but yeah, that's true. Because like I said, the narrator is not always trustable. That's true. And I'm not really sure if in the tale of Genji, the narrator is more like trustworthy or not really trustable, because yeah, it's kind of complicated. But then they say there is a narrator. There are narrators actually in the tale of Genji. And yeah, but yeah, and also like character creation, the traditional research has been done on what kind of words are utilized to modify the characters. That's what they are doing, or they have been doing, I think. And some characters are described as like certain way. But my question was, but what if we actually analyze characters' words? Characters' words are those words that are produced by the characters themselves. So do they actually are the same? Do they actually show the same characteristics? Those words utilized to modify the characters, or their words actually betray those modifiers. That's what I wanted to see here. Yeah, but thank you. Yeah, I'll be careful though. And also probably I should look into like other previous research that has been done on not only Japanese classical literature, but also like English literature as well, because they probably will be helpful. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Well, maybe one more question. If there are no questions, well, should I hand over to Yokoyama Sensei?
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you, Takeuchi Sensei, for the fantastic talk. I have so many things to say. I really appreciated how you try to get the kind of sense of the language, sense of the literary expression, not by relying on our contemporary sense of the language, but using the computational tools to gather the kind of usage in the literary corpus and kind of then draw from those references. So I thought that was really, really eye-opening. And in terms of your future endeavors to called the change in social ranks, that reminded me of this journal article published in Digital Scholarship in Humanities that tries to map onto the change in gender assignment, or like a social perception of gender as an event. So it would be really interesting if you could find a way to embrace the fluidity of the social ranks as the character evolves over time. So those are just my comments that I wanted to share. So thank you so much once again for sharing, and thank you, Tabata Sensei, for being the fantastic commentators and facilitators. And thank you everybody in the audience for your insightful questions and very really sharp commentaries. And I invite you all to invite over to DHAsia Discord channel to continue on the conversations over there. I know it's time, so let me wrap up. Our next DHAsia webinar session is already scheduled, and that's going to be on August 20th, Tuesday, 3 p.m. Hong Kong time, and you can start to register from the link in the chat. So I'd love to see many of you again in this Zoom space that we call the DHAsia webinar series. So please join me in appreciating once again for Takeuchi Sensei and Tabata Sensei, and thank you all for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.